So good afternoon. Thank you for attending the MAP grant application webinar. I'm going to be going through the process first of kind of understanding how the MAP grant is allocated out to our membership and what the process to expect throughout the year. I will also take a look at an example letter that you would have all received that kind of indicates what your amounts are, and then explain how the over allocation and reallocation of funds works. So March, which is what we just wrapped up here, you should have all received a letter indicating your minimum amount for population-based funding and also talking a little bit about special project funding. Our MAP grant is allocated through two different portals of population-based and special projects. Population-based funding is based on the amount of registrations that you have, and everyone is guaranteed a minimum amount of $500. If you surpass that $500, that would be outlined in your letter. If you didn't hit that threshold, everyone's bumped up to that minimum amount. So in that letter, what that looks like here, let me just grab it. There we go. Is it would have told you that you would have been allocated a certain amount of money and that you can apply for your population-based funding by April 15th, and the applications are hyperlinked on the bottom here. It would also talk about some of the requirements that you needed. So you had to have renewed, you need to have held a minimum QSP status if you are a club that operates with youth participants. If you are an adult-only club, this does not apply to you regarding club licensing. So any questions about club licensing or to see if you're eligible, the contact information would have been indicated there for Ashlyn. Also below it would have talked about the process that it's now online through Submittable, and we're going to go through that full application once we go a little bit further. And for MAP grant support, you would have found out about the webinars and also some of the other tools that we had to help you out. So this letter here only talks about your population-based funding, and it tells you your minimum amount. Why am I saying minimum so much? It's because that is what you are guaranteed if you follow up and you follow all the things that make it eligible for you to receive that funding. So as I said, that absolute minimum is $500. We do say that you should definitely apply for over that minimum amount, because what's going to happen is after the application deadline, once I go through all of the applications, it's going to either tell me that everyone has applied or that not everybody has applied, or you've applied for under your minimum amount. If that happens, then all that money that hasn't been accounted for has to go back into the pool and reallocated to members. Another thing that you wouldn't have been indicated yet is how much you've been allocated for special project funding. So special project fundings, that is, you can apply for up to $5,000 per special project, and as many special projects that are listed for you to apply under. Then I would let you know how much you've been applied for after the application deadline in May over here. So early May, approval letters are sent out. Here you learn your minimum amount and potential over submission amount. So what that means is that your minimum has been indicated earlier in the year, and now we've had to take the funds that were not accounted for in the initial applications, redistribute them out, so you have a new minimum amount. And that would be, again, that would be the amount you'd be eligible for to be paid out in November as a minimum. Why I keep saying minimum too is because when we come to the follow-up time frame, if people have not submitted all of their follow-ups and there's still money that has to be reallocated out through population-based funding, then that is given for over submission. So always apply and collect receipts for more than your minimum amount. That way you're eligible for over submission after the application deadline. Over submission is only applicable to population-based funding. Special projects, that letter that you get in May, I will tell you exactly how many dollars you will get. It will not be any more than that. I work within the parameters of that grant, and I allocate those funds based on how many projects were applied for on that April 15th deadline. So feel free to apply for as many as you like. For the maximum amounts. And what I'll usually tell you is you've been approved for $8,000 to use for across all of the projects you've applied for, but one project cannot have more than 50% of the grant allocated to it. So you need to stretch that out across what you've applied for. If you've only applied for one special project, you'd probably get a message that says you've been approved for $2,000 or $3,000 to use on that special project. And again, that money will not change for your special project. That will stay the same. Whether you complete the project or not, that money will then get redistributed back into population-based funding if it hasn't been completed for over allocation amounts, which are paid out after the application deadline. So that was a whole bunch of information. So April 15th, applications are due. Early May, you're going to get another letter, just kind of like the one you got in mid-March, that tells you how much your new minimum amounts are and how much you've been approved for special projects. Then you spend. If you've already started to spend in 2024 between January and now, those are also eligible amounts. So don't feel that those don't count. Just make sure you put those types of expenses in your applications when you apply for April 15th. So you'll spend between September and October, and then we'll start doing some webinars and some how-tos on the follow-ups. And November 1st is when your follow-up is due. And then checks, unless they're requested to be paid out
Hi, sorry to
earlier.
interrupt. I don't know if this happened to anyone else, but I've lost my audio.
Oh, here, I'll take a look here. Can anyone else not hear me? Okay. Where did we leave off from? Did we get me talking about November? I'll just kind of reiterate. I know I'm going so fast. So September to October, you start spending. November 1st, follow-ups are due unless you request earlier than a December 15th payout. So if you do request a payout before that time frame, you are not eligible for oversubmission. But say you have spent only your minimum amount, you don't have any oversubmission amounts, you can request to be paid out earlier. Another thing too for best practices is that we will not pay out to an individual. It has to be an organization. So you need to make sure that you have an account set up for your soccer club or your futsal club that we are paying it out to. Direct deposit is also an option for that to be set up. And if you've already signed up for that for last year, it's definitely an easy option for us to do for this year. So more about this time frame will be talked about in October. We're going to focus about back over here with the applications. So now I'm going to go over into our webpage. Oh, that's where I just was. It was just very large. Here we go. And here at sasssoccer.com, underneath member organizations, MAP Grant can be found. And on this page is a lot of help resources. So the MAP Grant Easy Guide is a great one for you to have open while you are applying. So here it's going to talk a lot about what I went through initially of how it works for MAP Grant, what population-based funding is based on, and special projects and the different categories. So for population-based and for special project, there are categories that you apply under. If you're ever unsure what you should apply under, just kind of ask me the question. I can help you out and let you know where to go. But a lot of your everyday operational expenses would go underneath your population-based funding. So you'll see there's referee development underneath both special projects and population-based funding. That's because special projects is more as a bigger picture project that you're trying to achieve in that year. So you could still have expenses every year that fall underneath population-based, like if you're holding a clinic or you want to get some educational material or some referee jerseys, etc. You can put those things that are here. But if you're trying to do, say, an all-girls referee clinic, or you want to work with a specific group of individuals, that would be more of a special project. Or you're sending a bunch of youth officials over to Saskatoon to become certified because there isn't a clinic in your community. This is a better, like a larger scale program for you to apply for. A lot of your operational costs, like I said earlier, would be under population-based. So organizational development would be things like your ramp admin fees, any new technology that you're getting, any type of office equipment you're looking to upgrade. Grassroots and recreational development would be upgrading equipment, jerseys. Coaching development is pretty self-explanatory, any coaching stuff that you would need. And then down here, we would have a list of special projects that we would like you to apply under. And if we keep going down, underneath each of the population-based categories, I give you examples. And then here under special projects, a whole bunch of examples of what you could apply for under each type of special project that we have listed. I'm not going to go through them each independently. I'll let you take a look and read those. Now, for ineligible projects, there is a difference between population-based and special projects, so please make sure you review both of them independently. The big one, though, is general operating costs, such as facility rentals and referee game fees, are not eligible underneath population-based funding. So if you are collecting registration fees and you're operating a league, your operating costs that you already receive revenue for are not eligible to be based off or to be applied to your grant funding, as well as any construction, maintenance, anything where you've used grant dollars already, social events, beverages, any research projects or feasibility studies, out of province travel, youth sport, university expenses, wages, or any other expense deemed ineligible. So if you're unsure, just ask. I will let you know. A lot of these are repeated in special projects, except for one of the areas that you can see here is referee game fees and rental costs. Now, and there should be a little asterisk beside that, because the only reason it's not listed under here is a special project is not your league. So you cannot put your referee game fees or your facility rental fees underneath a special project funding. But if you're hosting a girls only tournament or a camp where you wanted to work with an area of a group of individuals that you don't currently have access to participation with, and you wanted to have some officials or pay for a facility that would meet one of the criteria of the special project categories, those would be deemed eligible. Again, if you're ever unsure, ask before you apply and I will let you know. So that's kind of the difference there. Now, the revenue section where it's going to ask you in the application is you cannot gain a profit from our grant dollars. So we will ask you if you receive revenue for both population-based and special project. Population-based funding, the revenue is going to be how much you receive in revenue based on your registration fees as a whole for the organization. So give me an approximate kind of what you think you're expecting to get. That's just so we kind of do our, cross our T's and dot our I's to ensure that we're doing that due diligence to making sure that you're not gaining a large profit or any profit from our grant dollars. For special projects, it's extremely important. If you are charging registration fees for a project and you're going to be making money off of us allocating those dollars to you, then we'll probably send you a message to go, this project could be, you can remove cost as a barrier by offering it for free, et cetera, et cetera. So just make sure you pay attention to this and answer with the best approximation that you can get for the revenue section. And I'll show you what this is. We're going to go through the application. Don't you worry. Now, MAP grant best practices. You've all received your letters. You all know your minimum amounts. Once you have your approval letter after the 15th of April, you should create a couple folders on your computer or in your email where you're going to have it named underneath each of the categories that you're spending under. And there you start moving your receipts, your invoices, all the things you've purchased under that one space. And you name them appropriately. Name them so that you know that this receipt is going to go for population-based funding, coaching development. This one is going to go for special projects, youth leadership project. That way it's easy when you're doing a follow-up, you know where to find all of your receipts to submit to me. Because the big thing with MAP grant is this grant is you spend first, you follow up, and payment is received later. You do not get payment up front. You must have proof of spending in order to receive payment. So this is the easy guide. This is for you to go through, have kind of to reference as you're applying. Now let's take a look at the grant application. So majority of you would have already renewed your membership or have applied for MAP grant last year. This is done through Submittable. If you don't have a login, when you click on that link, it's going to take you to the login page to create an account. And then once you create the account, it's going to take you directly to the application, which is here. The easy guide and our grant policy is both hyperlinked. So if you don't have it open, it's quick for you to reference to. If you have any questions or need some help with Submittable, the resource center can be found right here as well. Always on the front page of our grants, you'll see this information. Then you start to fill it in. All of these red asterisks mean you must put this information in. Oops, I exit that. I didn't want to do that. It will always ask for 2 contacts. The reason we ask for a secondary contact, and that's mandatory, is that if anything ever happens to the primary one, we need to be able to follow up with someone to ensure that you receive your funding. And that if there's any questions and someone else is asking me, I can see that I have permission to talk to them about your grant. Just give me 1 second while I get all these in. Now it's going to ask, we're under the population base, provide a goal or objective for this funding. So if you have a main objective, these are mostly your operational costs. So you are wanting to provide the best soccer club in your community, wanting to develop and have the best soccer club in our community. Now you'd probably give me something a little better than that. That's just for kind of an overview, but kind of let us know what you're looking to obtain with this funding being offered to you. We like to celebrate what we do through MAP grant, so we really look forward to seeing what's filled in here. So just a couple sentences kind of gives us a good overview of what you're trying to achieve with your population-based funding. So those are those 4 categories I was talking about before. And here, once you know where you're going to apply for, you'll just check one off and it will open up the area that you'll apply under. But before we go to that, it's going to ask you about that revenue section. So again, we kind of talked about this. The one for population based is a little bit different. It's going to ask you what your revenues is for everything. So I would put in here what your approximate revenue through registrations will be for 2024. So I'm going to put 3,000. Now, since I selected organizational development, you can select all 4 for time. I'm just going to select the one. They all act exactly the same, just with different titles that pop up. So here it's going to give me a couple of examples. And then I'm going to ask you, provide specific details on what your project will be or what you're spending. And I'm going to go ramp admin fees, computer upgrades, AGM and November membership, travel, I don't know, new chair. You could just say staff supplies, office supplies. You could be as vague, but you need to understand. Oh, I got Sean in the waiting room. I'm just going to add her in. You need to understand that what you're putting in here is what I will approve. So if you don't have the absolute details of what you're going to spend, just make sure you at least go into some overview that entails what you're hoping to spend on. So if this was if we were under grassroots and rec development and I needed new soccer equipment, I would put soccer equipment, mini and youth soccer equipment, or soccer jerseys, or for coach development, coach bags, first aid kits. If you go very detailed, then you're going to be approved for those extreme details. If you give me details but some vagueness, it kind of gives it a little bit more flexibility. If you're worried that you're going to have items that are ineligible, then just make sure you kind of, as you purchase it or before you purchase it, you just kind of send me an email and see if that falls underneath there. I'm also very flexible with allowing you to amend your MAP grant application if it's requested beforehand. It's not always approved, but just if there's something that you absolutely need to change after you apply, just let me know. So estimated expenses, I'm going to go $500. You have to put how much you think you're going to spend. I'll put the 500 here. And I'm going to click on submit. As long as I have all the red asterisks filled in, it's going to tell me success. You have submitted for your population-based funding. Perfect. Now I'll return back here. I'm going to go back into special projects. And it's set up the exact same way, inputting that information. Down here, it's going to show me the list of special projects. It's going to ask which ones I want to apply for. So say I go with early sport, the jamboree for the community to celebrate many soccer equipment, nets, field liner, volunteer honorarium. Let's spell that right. Yeah, sure, we'll go like that. This is going to be free, so I'm going to go $0. If it's something that you don't expect any revenue, oh, that's the wrong one. $0. You still have to put a 0 as something is required in that field. So make sure that if you are not expecting any revenue for it, it's 0. And estimated expenses, I'm going to go $5,000. Jumpy, Newcastle, things like that. Good. And then I won't click on submit because I didn't fill out any of the above, but I've given kind of what we're hoping to do, what we're looking that we're going to have expenses on, how much my revenue is going to be. This will be a free Jamboree celebration day, so $0, and estimated expenses $5,000, and submit. Once you've clicked on both of those submits, if you don't want to submit it yet, say I'm going to save this as a draft. You can click on save as draft, and it's going to allow you to see your submission or exit out without losing what you've typed in. So I can go here underneath my submissions, and it's going to show me the test form that I'm working on. Oh, my drafts right here underneath drafts. And here's the test form that I'm working on. I can continue it, or if I want to scrap it, I can delete it. And you just click on continue and it will take you back to edit that document. If you want to see what you've submitted, so a lot of times you'll get a letter that says you've been approved for these amounts as listed in your application, and you go, well, Eden, I can't see what that is. That's because instead of me pulling it and putting it into the letter for more things for you to read, you could just reference the form that you submitted and see all the things that you've applied for. And in there, it would tell you what you had applied for and what's approved. So if I requested these items, and that's what I was approved for, then those are the items you're approved for. So just go into your form and take a look at what details you listed for the projects. And unless I told you that they're ineligible or you edited the document, then the things that you've mentioned here in the application form is what you are approved for. That letter, though, will come out with more detail, and I'll be able to answer any questions once you receive that. So again, if you have any questions about the process, my contact information is found right on the bottom of the page here. I'm going to stop this recording now and open it up for any questions. Just 1 second.